Trustee Stuff,
Here.
Trustee Rhodey,
Yep.
Trustee Peters,
Here.
Trustee Fraser,
Here.
Trustee Dubowski,
Here.
President Knutson.
Here.
Trustee Belt is absent and excused. Records are showing that a quorum is present.
Okay, item 2 is the public hearings. We have none. Item 3, approval of the minutes of the regular village board meeting, August 5th, 2025. I hope everyone's looked them over. Are there any questions, comments, or corrections as to the way they are presented this evening? If not, could I have a motion to approve as presented?
Motion to approve the minutes from the August 5th, 2025 village board meeting.
Second, Rhodey.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Minutes are adopted. Citizen comments? Okay, we have nobody here for citizen comments.
Oh. Oh, never mind.
Oh, okay. Item 5, ordinances. Review, discussion, and possible action on ordinance 2025-09, ordinance to create section 54112-2 of the municipal code of Village of Pewaukee regarding the prohibition of bullying and harassment. Everybody looked them over. Are there any questions, comments, or ideas as it relates to this particular topic? I believe this was brought forward by the police department and the police officer Budahagen in the school district, correct?
That's correct.
Does anybody have any questions or comments?
I guess if we could just hear the background.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, kind of came out, you know, we don't know much about. We can assume that it was something that was generated based off of feedback from the school and our SROs.
Yes, here, I'm Chief Timothy Heyer, and also here is our SRO, Julie Budenhagen. Officer Budenhagen came forward with this idea. I think it's an idea that brings clear definition to some of these things. Bullying, which is a thing now. It's cleaner than a disorderly conduct. It's an ordinance versus something that we would refer to the DA's office. And I think she's been very proactive and met with Mac Walensky, who formulated an ordinance. And I think it gives good definition. This is an educational tool to students and parents. And I think this is the first step in addressing this with children beyond education. It's a citation that could be issued, could go to court and possibly get community service or a fine. So there is something to hold these kids accountable for this. So I also brought Julie Budenhagen, whose idea was, if you want to get a little more clearer to your idea.
Sure. I'm Julie Budenhagen. I've been a police officer here for 21 years. I've been a school resource officer for 7. I'm going on my 8th year. Part of my role is, as an SRO, I'm also part of our Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, which I've been since 2010. In our ICAC, or Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, one type of crime that we deal with children, unfortunately, is cyberbullying. I've seen bullying evolve from the time I started in 2004 to now, go from bullying in person to now having access to an electronic device and being able to bully other peers essentially 24/7. It's really affecting our teens and even younger, their mental health. It's something that I feel they need to be accountable for as well as parents. So I love this ordinance because it gives that accountability piece for parents as well. Parents are giving cell phones to children as young as elementary schools. I understand some of the reasonings for that, but there's sometimes no guidance and no parental control over that because they're giving them the device, not realizing what their child could be doing. So what really hit home for me was last year we had a pretty egregious case involving an Instagram account involving several students in our school district. This is something that affected students not only in our school but also teens in the community. It was a referral I did to the county juvenile court system because I felt it was egregious enough to look at a state charge for it. When we look at state charges, there are no cyberbullying laws in the state of Wisconsin, so we're looking at illegal use of a computerized device, we're looking at disorderly conduct. It's kind of like those catch-all statutes that we're really looking at to see, and we're getting creative, like what does this one fit? It took a year, I'm not talking ill of our district attorney's office, but it took a year to get that back. And they basically said, we're not gonna prosecute this, but if you wanna do follow-up on it, you're welcome to, and then resubmit it. Well, what does that do for a victim a year later? And we had several victims. So do we wanna reopen those old wounds that they probably kind of got through? The downfall is we had suspects that we were able to show had, they were behind these accounts by doing work representing key addresses. In any way, I felt there was no accountability. This would give us a tool to be able to educate kids, educate parents, and we would be able to hold them accountable almost immediately when we're done with our investigation versus doing a referral, or versus issuing a $400 disorderly conduct ticket, which again is kind of that catch-all. Then we have a $400 ticket that parents are typically paying because children, don't have jobs. So in a nutshell, I really just feel like this ordinance kind of covers everything we're hoping for. We're being proactive. We can educate our community if this gets approved, and we can give warnings. We can hold parents accountable. But this is so important, I feel like, for to really support our children, the community, and teens. Yes.
Two questions. One, well, a statement. I applaud you for kind of taking this on because I agree it did kind of have no guardrails in it. Growing up, I was always, we were always told, if it's off school grounds, it's not school responsibility. That's, you deal with the repercussions from the police off school grounds. On school grounds, basically it was police were hands off, it was school to deal with. Does this have the backing of the school? And are we entering some sort of slope in, I suppose you do it already with like the vaping and the smoking and whatever, but enforcing a municipal code on school grounds?
Yeah, so I want to say, first of all, I want to answer your question, but I would say that we mediate a lot of situations that would be considered like a bullying or cyberbullying throughout the school year, even during summertime. We do that as police officers. We really try to mediate situations first. When it comes to the school district, so I talk about that Instagram case that we had. It was associated with school because it implied that it was a part of PHS. Now it wasn't, but that was kind of the handle, and that's how everybody became followers of the account. I work pretty closely with the administrators at the school district. They also just implemented a zero tolerance policy on bullying. So we're really working together, I feel like, on this. If there's a better way to handle it than just issuing a ticket, we'll do that. The other thing we're really dealing with is two different jurisdictions. So I can handle anything that happens in the village of Pewaukee or anything that's happening on school grounds with bullying, but if it's happening in the city of Pewaukee, I may start that investigation and then turn it over to the sheriff's department.
And I suppose that is the difference because, when I think bullying, I'm thinking getting pushed in the lockers, teasing, things like that. Like, that would be school grounds, whereas cyber crimes obviously know no bounds of that. Then my second question is, do you feel these penalties are stiff enough in this to actually act as a deterrent? Because for a third offense, you use that example of that Instagram account. That made Pewaukee news. I'm sure it made bigger than Pewaukee news. I don't even have a kid in the school, and I was very much apprised of it. If that's that kid's first offense, that's a $50 ticket. That's.
So with Attorney Gerlitz, can I discuss it with court costs? I believe it's $98.80.
Yeah,
now,
so actually, so what the ordinance has is the base fines, and with our current cost schedule, an actual take-home fine of $50 would be $124 for a first offense, $187 for a second, and $376 for a third offense.
Is that still
Yeah,
less
that's what I'm saying. I'm still
though?
not seeing that as being a deterrent.
Sure. So here's how I look at it, and it would be for pretty much anything where I'm dealing with 18 that has a third offense, disorderly conduct, possession of a vape. It's probably going to be a juvenile referral at that point.
Right.
Now, that process is difficult. When we do a juvenile referral, it gives that teen resources as well as kind of getting them through the juvenile court system, but we don't always see what happens because it's very confidential. And I feel like we get more clear-cut, again, answers and accountability if we do a citation, but it's not always the best thing. So we have to take each case, you know, for what it's worth. And I really think if we get to a second or maybe even third offense, this kid's not getting it, and it's
Right.
not gonna be the right answer.
And I don't mean to hog this, that just sparked a third question, I apologize. You mentioned about disorderly conduct being the catch-all. I've been caught in that before. You know, I yelled a profanity at a friend out on the street and I got a disorderly conduct ticket, which is no different than if I started a bar brawl, basically, you know, and it's to have to go to court to fight that a disorderly conduct ticket. I was like, this really is a catch-all for out on the street for the police to be like, you were acting up disorderly conduct, and it was the same fine amount.
Right.
So is there any multiplier, any whatever, to where there's a $50 ticket for the kid that walked past and shoved the kid into the locker, opposed to somebody who starts a fake Instagram account to slander a bunch of kids?
Yeah,
Or are they all just first offenses? And that concerns me because I hate catch-all.
right. Yes, and that's kind of what it is. And disorderly conduct, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's typically about $400.
It's 439.
Thank you.
439 right now?
I'll say it was 400 when I got it.
Yeah, and again, like we're dealing with kids. And the last thing I want to do is make a parent pay $439 for something their kid did out of their parents, like.
Can you add disorderly conduct on top of
We
this stuff?
could, depending on the circumstance, we certainly could.
Good.
You know, it's like anything, we can issue more than one citation if it fits.
What sticks is the thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But bullying is a course of conduct. It's not a one and done thing.
Right. But,
Yeah.
but I'm saying like a first offense is a first offense, regardless of,
Yeah.
is it you just, every day in class flicking someone's ear, and that kid gets upset every day and you're just kind of tormenting him, or somebody who actually takes a step that could potentially ruin someone's life on
Right.
the internet.
Right.
Those are both first offenses. So,
And we also spoke about if we had to come back a
And
year or
adjust.
2 years later, we can always adjust that fine. It also puts something in place to talk about with kids. Schools got their bullying policy, but the police department also has a citation that goes with it, so we can hold the kids accountable. So there's an education, but there also is an enforcement to this. So we discussed quite a bit about the fine amount and is it too small? But again, you're dealing with kids here, and it would be a first step in curbing that behavior rather than holding them accountable with large amounts of money like a
and obviously then it goes more on a record opposed to just being in their student file.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too, how many times does a teen or even adult have to fill out a job application? Tell me what you got a citation for. DC or disorderly conduct is a little bit different than putting down bullying. Like, it's very articulate as to what happened, or if somebody does an open records request, obviously juvenile records are typically confidential, but it just says a little bit more about the situation than just disorderly conduct.
The last time we came for the school was for the sexting ordinance, and that was a hefty fine on that. But because we were proactive in it, we curbed the amount of sexting that went on that we were aware of. I'm not saying that didn't stop it completely, but people are aware that's out there, just like the kids will be aware that there's a bullying ordinance and it can be held accountable.
What was that fine?
I think 439 also.
So, first of all, thank you. I love this, and that you saw a need and put something together to help this very, very real problem. My point of view is also that it's too low. I think $50 is not enough for that. And if we're kind of waiting for the second and the third, I think by that point, terrible things could have happened by then, in bad cases for kids. So if that worked, if that process worked of the hefty fine, and you really saw it curb, I would suggest following suit from the cost perspective. I also I'm a parent, I don't feel bad charging the parent for that because I think that's taught at home. So I'm okay with a hefty fine. You know, in reality, we're also in Lake Country, so we do want it to be relevant to it being, you know, more than not even thinking twice about it. But thank you for doing this, and I do think it's great to have on the record and to be able to share with, you know, kids in the schools. So I appreciate that.
Go ahead, Ray.
You can go.
No.
Oh, okay. Could you talk to me about how the process would work? You said the school has their own bullying rules in line. How, do you guys have to hear, or does a teacher call you? How does this work?
So it depends on the circumstance. I mean, sometimes it will be on a Saturday and we get a call just at the police department, hey, my daughter is receiving, you know, information from her friends on Instagram that somebody posted memes about her and they're bullying her, you know what I mean? So sometimes it can come directly into our police department. Other times we'll be alerted through Speak Up, Speak Out Wisconsin, which is it's an anonymous program that the school district uses, so it could come through that. It could come through students, it could come through staff. So again, I refer back to this PHS Instagram account because it was horrendous. That was something where administrators and I are messaging, you know, on Sunday at 10 p.m. because I think it came down and then it came back up, and we're, you know, trying to think of what we're doing. So it comes in many different ways, sometimes from the student itself, sometimes from a peer of that student, staff, our online reporting systems. So it just really all depends.
Thank you.
Now, I get it that if it's being done in school, and if they live in the city, we still have jurisdiction, correct?
We have jurisdiction in the school if it's happening, but a lot of times we'll get reports at school because these teens are coming to school and they are adults they trust. So whether it's a counselor, me, a staff member, that's when the reports are coming in. And it may not have happened at school, it might have happened the night before, or maybe they got a message on the bus. So we have to just take into account of what jurisdiction it is, and then we can handle it from there. If it's happening on school grounds, most definitely we can do it. The Instagram account, the suspect was in the city of Pewaukee, but a lot of it was happening on school grounds, so we were able to take that investigation.
Okay. Yes.
Back to the deterrence, you mentioned that beyond the monetary penalty, there is an alternative route as well, like some counseling or any of that nature?
So what I kind of meant by that is that if we do a state referral, social services gets involved for those teens. So it goes to our juvenile district attorney's office, but prior to that, our social services department actually has 60 days to take a look at that case to offer support for that child prior to going to our district attorney's office. As for municipal level with this, I feel like just if we would be able to enact this ordinance, that's going to be an educational piece. But I think very highly of our judge, Melissa Murray, who typically will use this as a tool to teach our teens, whether it's a hold open so they don't make any more mistakes and they do their community service. It's something that they can kind of learn from and move on, and then ultimately won't have to pay that fine. So that's kind of what I meant by that. They definitely get that resource through the county, not as much through our municipal ordinance, but it's something where I know our judge is very big on that educational, let's learn from your mistake.
So, my son gets a ticket for bullying. That's going to be on his record. There's no other way to get education on it, clear it from his record, do the time some way else.
Talking like traffic school.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like going to, clean it up, be like, hey, look, I understand I made a mistake. I understand. I want to learn from it and I want to move on, and I don't want this to impact my future.
Yep, so there's two different things that I'm thinking of that would support your son. One would be, again, Melissa Murray, our judge is amazing. When I say hold open, yes, he would get the ticket, he would go to court. If she, and she typically, I always say always, but she typically will offer that community service to the teens, especially if it's a first offense. If they go through their community service and complete it, and they don't get any more tickets for anything else or no other law enforcement contact, it goes away.
Okay.
So it's done. The other thing that the school district started last year was kind of their own, called like a U-turn program. So we have a student with a vape for the first time. The school district can tell me, like, here's the vape, first of all, we tested to make sure it's not positive for THC. Instead of issuing a citation for that first offense, they will have the student go through kind of like their own, you know, maybe tobacco educational program, or depending on what type of vape they're caught with. And if they complete that, then I just document it in a matter of record report, and then there's no ticket issued. If the child doesn't complete that, then a citation is ultimately issued. So I feel like together we're kind of both working to kind of, I say rehabilitate, but we're all teens at one time. We make kind of stupid, impulsive mistakes, and if we can learn from them and it's not on our record, I think that's really where we want to go with it. And this bullying piece, to me, is something that can often be learned from parents. If you look at Pewaukee parents, I love it. But you look at what is all posted on there by adults, and then we wonder why kids are the things they are.
So Mike, so let's circle back to the other trustees' idea of the fine being a little too low. I would like to see it much higher, not only to, you know, as a revenue source or anything like that, but as in more of a directional piece to go get the rehabilitation. Because with parents being parents, and even kids, I mean, being a former business owner, I was paying 14, 15-year-olds $15 an hour. And they'll be like, I'll just pay that by working, you know, a Tuesday night shift, no problem. And they're just gonna move on. So is there any way we could make that steeper to possibly say, look, I'm gonna show up to court instead of just cutting a check, and I'm gonna learn from this what my options are?
Yeah, I would defer to Attorney Berlinski.
Yeah, I mean, the setting of the forfeiture is within the discretion of the board. So.
And that doesn't delay anything because that's a small enough detail that it doesn't change anything fundamentally with the ordinance, correct?
No.
We can adjust it tonight.
You can adjust it tonight. The only thing is I don't have my bond book with me, so I couldn't give you a number. Because there are set forfeiture amounts so what is in the ordinance is the base fine. And then when you add in, there's set court costs that fluctuate every once in a while, but once you add those costs in, that's where you get these take-home numbers that I said before.
Well, I mean, and this is not speaking for the board, but in what I had originally said about saying it'd be too low, if we do pick a number, we can determine a whole number, and then you would add the forfeiture portion on top of it to make the total forfeiture.
I mean, I can give the board kind of an idea of what the next rungs of the ladder are in terms of fines. So after 376, you're looking at 439, 691, I think are the next two.
And that's including the.
Correct.
Well, it's an investigation on your part.
Right.
This isn't like by the whim, hey, we're gonna go and that person flicked the kid in the ear and we're gonna give them a bullying citation.
Yeah, it's not a parking ticket.
Right, this is a continuous act and a course of conduct that they probably have been told multiple times to knock it off, you know, by parents, by authorities, or whoever it is. So I'm all in favor of making it as high as we can make it.
I agree. I also think that by the time it comes to you, it's probably been going on for a while.
Right.
So, and you know, we have a super smart team. Like, I don't think you're gonna take the kid that's been flicked in the ear and process it the exact same way as the PHS Instagram person. But I think if we have like a recipe that worked around that $400 mark, I will say, like, you know, having daughters, like, I've heard since I had my kids that bullying has been a problem in the Pewaukee schools. So if if that's known and, you know, there is a way to help that, I'm all in favor of that.
How much is a truancy ticket?
Truancy?
Truancy.
I think it's 98.80,
That's where it starts.
yeah, per violation though. So it's,
That's not enough either. That's not enough.
Hey, slow down.
Jeff?
Yes, go ahead.
A point of view, and keeping in mind, we're all coming from a similar income level, okay? Officer Butenhagen is dealing with all levels at the school. If your recommendation is at these levels, I would recommend going with those levels. I have confidence in her experience and what she's recommending. I don't want to dictate to them and say that we know better than she does when she's working with these students every day.
And the $50 ticket again, like Matt said, it's like $124.
correct.
And this is based on Matt doing some research also. So we kind of had a little conference call, we looked at this, and we were comfortable in these rates at this point. And again, that goes after some research by Matt.
Yeah, and it is in line with, I think there's at least 5 other communities across the state that have enacted these types of ordinances, and the base fines that we recommended are in line with what those other communities have done.
Yes, go.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm still very concerned about people just paying the fine and moving on,
There's no incentive to actually
to
rehabilitate.
rehabilitate it.
And that is, and this is no disrespect to you or the work you're putting in or the research that has been done. I stand by my statement that I think they do need to be higher, because I mean, $50 with the $90 ad, that's still, I would rather pay that than give up my Saturday volunteering at the food pantry if I was a teenager, you know? So, and I mean, I know what I made as a teenager, and I would like to imagine they make probably a couple dollars more. I don't think $50, even with the forfeiture, is, I agree, deterrent enough to try to incentivize rehabilitating. I mean, at the very least, I would eliminate the 50 and start it at 100. That's my personal stance. But
I mean, the only caution I'm sorry, the only caution I would give is we don't want to get too out of whack with other violations and other forfeiture amounts we have.
I don't think
on the
$50
books.
is too out of whack.
I don't think it is either, but I'm just saying, if we are assessing at $439 for a disorderly conduct, how far away from that, which, yes, it's a catch-all, but it's also a potential criminal violation too. It's the same statute, so are we gonna be treating disorderly conduct at a 439, and then are we talking about going above and beyond that for second and third offenses for bullying for these kids?
I was under the impression that not all bullying would escalate to also include disorderly conduct. Or am I misled in that, or mistaken in that?
Say that again?
I was under the impression that the first approach would be the bullying citation, and if it was egregious enough, then it possibly could get a disorderly conduct, things like that.
Correct. So what I'm saying is, if we're taking disorderly conduct as a more egregious violation, that fine is $439.
Right.
I just want to caution the board about making bullying more than disorderly conduct, I think. I don't think that makes much sense.
Yeah, I agree with that, attorney. I don't think it should be more either, but I think the other one was the same, right? The
sexting, yes.
sexting is the
Yeah.
same as the disorderly conduct.
Sure.
In my opinion, I would put them at the same, and I am seeing, when I think of bullying, I think of the thing that probably takes the most children's lives, you know, in that type of a way, not like I pushed you in a locker and people laughed. Like, I think bullying has become more than any of us experienced, of like the impact of it in our day and age with social media. So I think it's very serious. I know I said before we're in Lake Country. I didn't mean to speak that we're all of the same income level. Of course we're not, but we are in Lake Country. That is a factor as well. But I also don't think we should be pricing things so people can afford it either.
Can I ask a silly question as
Sure.
a non-parent? I'm just trying to think when I was in high school, if I would have, how much parent support do you guys see on your end? Because if I came home with a bowling ticket, I would be more afraid of my parents than that ticket. So like, you know what I'm saying? Like, is the cost really important, or is it they're taking this ticket home to their parents and their parents now have to deal with that child?
It depends on the parents. Unfortunately,
Good answer.
there's a lot of times that parents do enable their child
Okay.
and don't want to think that they did anything wrong, no matter what type of evidence we bring forward. And really the fine amount, I was using Attorney Gerlinski's guidance for that. It's really not my realm to decide. And it is somewhat similar to our other first offense citations. I would really lean on you guys to decide what you feel would be best. Sometimes we do have more children, if not in our district in general, and just would maybe know what would, be the best for
See,
citation amount.
You know, when I look at it, it's like, this isn't a one car crash here. You know, this isn't, you got caught with a vape. This is you make better decisions. What this is impacting is someone else's innocent bystander life, and potentially catastrophically, potentially fatally. And I put that at a higher realm than any other potential first offense of you got caught smoking on campus, you know, whatever. This isn't the same thing in my book. You know, this is someone who had no reason or had no input in it whatsoever is now psychologically, emotionally, physically affected. And $50 is not enough. That's my stance.
I would just like to say that I agree with everybody, but then again, I do agree more with Bob. In that they know what they're doing, they have the expertise. Maybe keep the single fine, maybe keep the first fine the same, but increase the second and third. You know, if they know that if they do it a second time, it's gonna be even worse than what they paid. I think that might be more of a deterrent than just hitting them the first time, because some people might say, well, screw you, I'm gonna do it again, just to, whatever. But I'm gonna have to go with what was presented, but maybe going higher on the second and third offense.
Well, but they said that they weren't presenting that number, right? You said you were following the guidance of Attorney Gerlinski based on other areas, not necessarily that's what your recommendation was. Is that correct?
We all agreed in a conference call with Matt, who did the research on this. So we talked it over, because I looked at a $50 and I said, hey, $50 is real low. Well, once you put the court costs and everything else, it bumps it up to a $120.
I just don't think we should be trying to deter a second time offense. I think we should be trying to deter the first time offense. If my first speeding ticket is $50, but the second one's gonna be $250, well, then hell, I'm gonna speed until I get that first one, and so we shouldn't be, if that first ticket's $250, I'm gonna watch my speed because I don't want that $250 ticket. So I don't think we should be deterring the second one because we don't know if that second one is too late.
Like, honestly, I'm pretty involved in the schools. I know a lot of people whose kids go to school. Most of them would say $50, that's annoying, but like $400, like, we'd hear about it, right? It would be like, that sucks, oh man, like, it's gonna be a bigger conversation. And if 400 is too high and there's something in the middle, but I think we're split enough that the 50s feels too low.
Yes.
Again, I'm not worried about the monetary value at all. What I would like to see, you said there was 5 other communities that have an ordinance like this. I want to get this passed, so I don't want to delay that whatsoever. But I'm assuming they have some sort of statistics, that's a tough word for me to say, statistics on out there saying how many people actually pay the fine versus actually going the secondary route of community service and rehabilitation. So, but with all that said, I don't want a second attempt. Sometimes that's too many. And I think that if we set it appropriately to begin with, we'd instantly make them go towards the rehabilitation route through the judge.
Nick, I completely agree with you. I think I want to see the data as well. Like,
Yeah, but let's get it going first. We can always adjust the ordinance in the future.
can we do like amendments? Is that difficult to do?
You can amend it.
Okay.
That's,
To change,
It's
okay.
an ordinance. It can be changed at any time. It's the will of the board.
I mean, we could start low.
Can I, what if, I'm not throwing it out, but what if I make a motion right now to make the first offense $100 and go up in scale from there? Is everyone okay if I make a motion? We could vote on that.
100 to start?
What court cost was that come out to, Attorney Grills?
187.
I'm good with it. I think we need to start somewhere. And I think, yeah, and I would like it higher than 50. Yes.
I'd make a motion to to approve ordinance 2025-09, amending, forfeit, or amending, what am I looking for here? Forfeitures, the first offense being, starting at $100 and continuing on scale from there.
Second, Stove.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Everybody understand the motion?
So just to clarifying, so on scale,
You 100, second offense is 250, third offense, whatever the next one is in your bond book.
Would it be 100 plus court costs?
Correct.
yeah, he's talking about the base fines. Okay.
Yep, sorry. I was just reading so the baselines of 100 for first offense and continuing.
Nick, are you okay with the court cost added?
Yes.
Okay.
Just to be clear, those are always have to be paid. Are those ever waived in the rehabilitation?
Yes,
They are, okay.
yeah.
Okay, good. Yes, then I definitely approve, yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay, and only because of the amount, not because of
You
all
want,
your work in the ordinance.
you want higher or lower?
I want higher, but it's okay.
Is that a yes or no?
I said no.
No, okay. In that case, ordinance 2025-09 is hereby adopted. Thank you, officers. Thank you, chief.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work.
Great job at the school, by the way.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Looking forward to starting back up there.
President,
Item B, review, discussion, and possible action on ordinance 2025-10, an ordinance to repeal chapter 92 of the municipal code of the village of Pewaukee regarding the transportation authority. Has everybody read it over? It's basically saying that our transportation utility is no longer in effect. Is that not correct, Matt?
Yeah, there's a court order in place which prevents you from collecting that utility fee, so in my opinion, there's no reason for that to be on our books anymore.
Okay, is there any questions or comments? Can I get
I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 2025-10, repealing chapter 92 of the municipal code of the village of Pewaukee.
Second, Peter?
do we have a motion and a second? Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
Nay.
Okay, we have
It passes, but I don't think we should have got rid of it. We need the funds.
ordinance 2025-10 is hereby adopted. Resolutions, we have none. Old business, we have none. New business, review, discussion, and possible action to approve the quarterly financial records, or, pardon me, reports And I'd just like to say, I think they looked really, really well. I think did a great job putting it together, sir. Matt, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Just to introduce that this is something that the village treasurer used to do for the board, would provide quarterly reports. Colin was appointed the village treasurer, I believe, in May. And these are his first submissions for quarterly financial reports. So I think we're just continuing with what happened prior. I don't know if there's any questions or comments for him.
Are there any questions or comments as they are presented this evening? If there aren't, then could I get somebody to approve them as the way they are presented?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the format of the quarterly financial reports.
Second, Grabowski.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you, sir, for being here. If you wouldn't have been here, we would have had a ton of questions. Item B, review, discussion, and possible action to approve an agreement with Park Avenue Pizza at 121 Park Avenue to reserve 3 parking spaces on Park Avenue. Matt, do you want to just give us a quick overview on that?
Sure, thank you, President Knudsen. So the village received a request from Park Avenue Pizza that they are having problems with people parking right in front of their business that are not their customers and taking up those parking spaces. Sometimes these are vehicles that have boat trailers attached to them, which would take up 2 spaces then. So they are looking to get the same reservation of those spaces for their customers that the village has afforded to Beach Bum Bakery on West Wisconsin Avenue. And what's in the packet before you tonight would be to reserve 3 spaces for them. And they would take out an annual permit with the village clerk, just like Beach Bum Bakery does. And the process would work the same as it does for Beach Bum Bakery, where we act on complaint, where they would call the police if they notice somebody abusing those spaces, and the police would come and issue a citation.
Just to be clear, these are intended to stay parking for Park Avenue customers only, not on-street dining. And it was discussed at the DPW board that they would be responsible for signage and sign placement under the direction of DPW and staff, because it is a narrow sidewalk there, so we have to maintain at least the ADA compliance width of that sidewalk with any additional signage that they're adding.
Jim, the question I had was, would we be taking down the 1-hour limit sign then? Because sometimes
Yes, 'cause
they could be a little longer.
Yeah, because the 1 hour parking would be the municipal, if we're running it, but these are their spots then, so then they can allow their
Okay.
patrons to use them longer.
Yes, sir.
I was not here when the Beach Bum and other properties had the negotiations to get the lease and right-of-ways onto the village streets. But I think we're starting to see it right now, a snowball effect, that one business does it, then another business does it, and then another business does it, and then eventually all of our village streets are going to be reserved for business operators. I personally have been to Park Avenue. They have, within their lease agreement and part of their backside, they have private parking just for Park Avenue as well, and giving up parking spaces for village people to enjoy our village just to attend their business, I disagree with.
Anyone else have a comment?
One comment I will make, and the owner had expressed the fact that he has the same problems with his private parking along the side of the building with people who are actually going out on boats, parking in his parking spots. You know, and he has problems with that already. So these are directly in front of his business. he's willing to essentially subsidize by making payments on them, I'm completely in favor of doing this.
I mean, I basically might as well be a parking lot monitor for that during the summer as I sit out on my porch and have my coffee, but I can't tell you the amount of times people pull into either their parking spots or the ones at 145 Park Ave, even nosing straight up to the sign that says tenant parking only, and I just see them pull out coolers and floaties and walk to the rental boats and just don't care. So there's ample parking for the downtown and for the beach in that area, and I think we can reserve a couple spots for these because they've been good stewards to the community to this point.
It seems that the business owner itself has a problem regulating their own parking, and they're putting the boot onto us as a village to regulate parking for them. So if they can't regulate their own parking already, why should we have to regulate parking for them? Because now we're responsible.
This would be complaint based, so they would still have to regulate these spots in front of them.
So, okay, so it's still in the same realm of what they do now.
It's just it gives them the ability to regulate those spots in front of them.
Okay, that's, all right. That
Yeah,
was
we're
my
not,
misunderstanding.
the village police aren't gonna come in and make sure that they're, actually patronizing
Going in and out, okay.
or validating or anything like that. It's just if somebody parks with a boat trailer in front of them and they're not even open yet, then Park Ave has the right to call the village police to ticket. You want to talk about deterrent? Don't get me started on on our parking violation schedule. So, because that's definitely not a deterrent for people parking on the street. I can tell you that much.
I just, as a business owner with parking, that's a huge thing in lease negotiations, and it's kind of circumventing their negotiation or owning the building or the property. They're getting additional free parking and taking it away from other people that want to enjoy the lake and other businesses. So if I was, just put it into perspective, if I was driving down and I wanted to go to the bank, I don't know, or Daily Dose, the closest parking is in front of Park Avenue, which happens frequently. I cannot use that because I'm not using Park Avenue. I'm not getting a piece of pizza. I have to find parking way else, even though there's a spot available just for them.
For the record, anybody who watches on YouTube, Daily Dose has their own private parking lot behind their restaurant.
Behind it.
Yes.
Correct,
Yeah.
because they purchased the building, and that was a huge thing in their whole entire purchase negotiations.
But the difference
Yes.
there, that is fenced off specifically for Daily Dose.
Right.
Whereas, like Trustee Rhodey had mentioned, I would be willing to, and I get what you're saying, because yes, there are obviously plenty of Park Avenue patrons that park in the Lehman Park, but that is public. So the spots that are dedicated to them, it would be the same. It would pretty much be the same as if I come back and people are parked in my driveway because it's the closest to the boat launch. She does that, and it gives me the right to enforce it because this is my area. These should be reserved for my customers, but their patrons don't have the ability most summer nights or summer evenings because of the popularity of Lehman Park, which isn't a bad thing. I'm not saying that we should deter people from coming downtown, but we have to give them the opportunity, and especially when we have special events downtown, the fireworks, what have you. I mean, they asked to reserve those spots for just pick up for carry out even, because otherwise people can't even come anywhere near their business. Right. So and I agree with you, we set the precedents. We don't have, in my hands or my eyes, we don't have the ability, we've tied our hands on this, but I also don't see it as being egregious because it's not taking parking away. It's not an on-street dining to now it's like, well, now where are they going to park those 3 patrons that were supposed to be coming there? They're still there, they're still usable. When they're not open on Monday, I'm sure anyone could park there. I'm sure they're not going to enforce it.
So I was gonna ask about that. Could it be Wednesday through Sunday since they're closed Mondays and Tuesdays?
I don't want to limit it because Beach Bum because they're going to have to put signage up. We're not going to switch signs out or anything.
We'll just say Wednesday through Sunday, like they do like on, you know, except Sundays or whatever.
But that, again, we're going off the precedent of what Beach Bum was, and which is the same precedent that we gave for the on-street dining. So when you rent it, they're yours for that time period that you rented it for. So it keeps the same schedule, there's no difference, there's no fee structure difference, it's theirs.
But they're not open 2 out of the 7 days.
Of which I don't expect them to enforce it then at those days.
Are the fines the same on parking spots that are being, like this particular thing? Because now it's like a private parking lot.
The fines are the same. It's still public property.
It's still
just-
public.
Yep, it's just being leased out for this limited purpose, but the fine is still the same.
So it's only $20 or
I
whatever it
believe
is.
so, yes.
But on their building side where they own that, that could be considerably more.
And you could have,
It's up to them to enforce
you
usually.
could have them towed from the
Yeah,
lot.
yeah, the private property owners could have them towed. The village ability to tow,
And I can't
as we've
remember,
talked about, is relatively
and
limited.
I can't remember if we originally gave Beach Bum the authority to tow if they wanted to. I think we did. But they would have
believe
to-
we did, but I think.
It's not
we
through the
s-
village.
Yeah.
They have to call Ken Weber, whoever, to come.
Correct. I think they have the ability to do it. The village would not tow on their.
Correct. Again, this enforcement is, all has to be reactive based upon owner complaint.
Well, are there any more discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement with Park Avenue Pizza at 121 Park Ave to reserve the 3 parking spaces with the understanding of, because I didn't see it in here, but staff notifying them of signage and requirements.
Second, Rhodey.
You have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion is hereby carried. Review, discussion, and possible action to approve, Review and discussion and possible action regarding a request for a stop sign at the railroad crossing on Kopmeyer Drive. I got some calls on this and I turned it over to trustee Zabowski, and I'd like to personally thank him for taking ownership of this and getting this taken care of. Appreciate that, sir. Thank you.
This came in front of the DPW board. It was pretty cut and dry in terms of the increased safety at that crossing, being that the coming over the tracks, there was no yielding or no stopping, where it tees going on to Kopmeyer. It appears, and from all we remember, there was a stop sign there prior to the reconstruction of the crossing. There's a line already there, so it's just basically replacing a stop sign to increase the safety at that intersection.
President Knudsen?
Yes.
After this agenda came out, it came to my attention that probably the proper way to do this would be to introduce a resolution to update the traffic map of the village, which is what we did when we implemented that right turn arrow on Evergreen, I think it was. So my recommendation tonight would be to defer this to the September 2nd meeting, and then I'll have a resolution ready for you at that meeting.
Guess it wasn't as cut and dry as I thought it was.
Had to throw that monkey wrench.
Leave it to the wheels of government.
That's right.
I think the hole was already dug.
For what it's worth, I concur with Mr. Iser's recommendation.
Well, then could I have, yes, somebody want to make this motion to defer?
I'll make a motion to defer at staff's request.
Second, Peter.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Review, discussion, and possible action to approve a timeline for the 2026 budget. Matt?
I think this is an easy one for the board tonight. All you're really looking at is kind of breaking down the different department presentations. I think Parks and Rec and Library would be the first out of the gate at the next meeting. So there's no real consideration tonight, just an approval that you're okay with that timeline.
Is everybody okay with those? If they are, I'd like to see somebody make a motion to approve the timelines.
Motion to approve the timeline for the 2026 budget.
Does that work in your timeline?
Yeah, it does, absolutely. And the important thing is that we wrap it up really the second meeting in November, because we have to get our information to the county for them to put it on the tax bills.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any other questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Review, discussion, and possible action on bills and invoices from July 2025. I look for a motion to approve all checks and invoices and bills on all,
Motion to approve.
except for
checks,
the library, I'm sorry.
bills and invoices from July 2025, except for the library.
Second, Rudy.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. I'll look to acknowledge the bills, checks, and invoices from the library.
Motion to acknowledge the bills, checks, and invoices from the library.
Rachel, you wanna get this one?
Sure. Second, second Peter, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hereby adopted. No citizens here this evening. Item 10 is adjournment.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Do I have a second?
I did it.
Oh, all in favor, say aye. Aye. We are hereby adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
I'll be right back. My teeth were full.
I think it's